Hey everybody, and welcome back to another severe storm thermal weather forecast. In this forecast, we have an active weather pattern to talk about, so let's get right into it. We're first going to be taking a look at our air masses across the United States, or in other words, our troughs and ridges. We have a trough sitting here in the Pacific Northwest, while we have a very big ridge building in the eastern United States. That in between those air masses, that is bringing about some rain and snow from areas all the way from Canada back in towards the higher elevations of the southwestern United States, and that will continue all the way through the daytime hours tomorrow until it begins to eject over the Rocky Mountains. This is when the collision of air masses will become a little apparent. All right, this is going to start to mess with 70s and even 80s within this ridge. All right, so we got a trough here, we got a ridge here. All right, the collision of air masses, or the tension between them, if you think of it, the war between the cold and warm air, we're going to see severe weather all the way from Texas up into the northern plains as we head in towards the day on Tuesday. That might be a bit further west. This is probably the more realistic area, so we're going to need to keep an eye on that. But as we head through the day on Wednesday, it becomes a lot more concerning because this trough is going to continue to dig in, but it is negatively tilted, and when you get negatively tilted troughs, the tension between cold and warm air is much stronger, so you get a lot of surging warmth ahead of it and surging cold behind it. All right, this is going to set up potentially enough moisture for a severe weather outbreak all the way from Wisconsin all the way back down into the northern Texas panhandle, while we still have the surging warmth in the east and the surging cold in the west. And then as we head in towards the day on our Halloween, this trough will continue to move here. Again, trough sitting here. We have the big ridge in the east. And again, the tension of air masses is going to create likely some severe weather still for areas of the Great Lakes region, back over into the Midwest region. Damaging winds would be the primary threat at this point, but as we head in towards Saturday, November 2nd, we're watching another storm system with another digging trough and another big, gigantic, extending ridge. Tension of air masses is going to create severe weather anywhere south of that northern low, which means it would be anywhere south of South Dakota, Nebraska, all the way down to Texas would be favored for that as we head in towards November 2nd. And then as we head in towards November 3rd, look at this. This trough really starts to get its act together. It is negatively tilted as we head in towards this time frame. And then we have the surging warmth in the east. You get the tension. Like I said, this is going to create a battle zone for strong to severe thunderstorms. All right, and this could be all the way from Minnesota all the way back down to Texas. You can see this area of low pressure is all the way northward. All right, anywhere east of this is going to have severe weather. All right, but not north of it. All right, so that's why I cut off there from southern Minnesota. But anyways, as we head in towards November 4th here into November 5th, our voting day, you can see here this trough is continuing to dig here. It is a neutrally tilted trough at this point, and we continue to have this surging warmth in the east. Tension between the air masses will create severe weather all the way from the Ohio Valley back down into portions of the Gulf Coast region. And then as we head beyond that, things become very uncertain. However, the GFS model is just showing more storm systems with more ridges, and the tension of those air masses is only going to bring more severe weather events for areas like in the circle regions, as well as maybe even snowfall for these circle regions, and maybe even heavy rainfall for some of these areas. And taking a better look at our precipitation trends instead of circling random areas with looking at our air masses, let's take a look at our precipitation trends to make it more simplified here. As you can see, as we take this in towards the daytime hours on Tuesday, we have severe weather south of this area of low pressure, warm air surging northward on the eastern end of that, and cold air surging in on the backside of that. Again, the tension zone is exactly where that precipitation is, and you can see these tightly packed together lines here. These are isobars, or or equal lines of pressure. These are very equal lines of pressure, and they're very consistently changing. So we could see gusty winds, sub-severe 30 to 40 miles an hour, or I'm sorry, 20 to 30 miles an hour at least for these areas ahead of the storm system. And then as we take this into Wednesday itself, look at this, folks. This is when I could say we could have the negatively tilted trough here. And sure enough, here it is, the tension of air masses, warm air surging northward, cold air surging southward. The tension between the air masses creates the severe weather. All right. Anywhere north of this is likely just going to be rain, like areas like in Canada right here. This is just going to be rain, maybe heavy at times, maybe even mixing with snow further north. Definitely not a severe weather threat up there in Canada. But as we head into Halloween itself, this is what I am focusing on. All right, look at this. We have snow on the northern end, and look at this. This is what I'm concerned about. Again, warm air surging northward, cold air surging in behind it. There's a boundary right here, and this looks like it's going to be a big area of severe thunderstorms all the way probably from southern Toronto back down into the Gulf Coast. All right, anywhere south of this low, like I said, primarily anywhere south of this line could see severe thunderstorms on Halloween. And anywhere where I circle you, this is where Halloween is going to be a bit messy for ya for trick-or-treat plans, unfortunately. So if you're in any of these circle regions, please make sure you're keeping an eye on the forecast for trick-or-treat, because those thunderstorms and wind gusts could potentially, and rain and snow showers, ruin your trick-or-treat. So make sure you're keeping an eye on the forecast, parents or kids. And then as we head in towards that November storm system, we have a very big digging trough, like I said before. The tension of air masses, the warm air surging northward, cold air surging southward, you get it. We will likely have a boundary for the potential for some strong thunderstorms. This is only day one of this. Day two comes on voting day for the same exact areas as before. All right, look at this. We have a 990 millibar low up here in Canada, and we're likely going to have more tension of air masses, cold air wrapping in on the backside, creating more threats for thunderstorms and severe weather. All right, and this is on voting day. All right, so you really need to be watching the radar on this day, because people might be outside voting, and that could potentially ruin that. So make sure you're keeping a close eye on the radar on voting day if you're voting. And then as we go beyond that, things become very uncertain, like I said before. However, like I said before, the GFS model is really hinting at a very active pattern as we head in towards early to mid-November. And now let's take a look at our precipitation trends across the United States here, because we got to see our temperatures across the United States going in towards the daytime hours tomorrow. Notice that as we go in towards tomorrow afternoon, you can obviously see, if I draw this line, this is where all the warm air is anywhere south of it. And if you're north of it, you're obviously not south of the warm front. So we could potentially have upper 80s in areas like these areas, at least low to mid 80s at least in that circle region. Otherwise, we're going to have widespread 60s, 70s, 80s in this region. So definitely take advantage of that nice weather. It will be breezy ahead of that storm system, but still it's going to be dry, so take advantage of it. And then as we head through the day on our Wednesday here, you can obviously see where the warmer air is and where the colder air is. Warm front is well into Canada at this point. Warm air surging northward. And then here comes the cold air. Some areas might not get out of the 30s in the lower elevations of the western United States. All right, we could be talking 20s in the higher elevations through the day on Wednesday afternoon. in that area. So you can definitely see the differentiation of temperatures, and you can see this is likely where our frontal boundary would be with thunderstorms ahead of it. And then as we head into our Halloween itself, everyone's wondering, what are our temperatures going to be? Well, unfortunately, the front's passing earlier than Halloween for folks in areas like this circle region. Unfortunately, you guys are only going to have 40s and 30s, maybe even 20s up here in Canada for the daytime hours on Halloween. However, if you live anywhere south of this line, you are likely going to have a pleasant Halloween temperature-wise. But remember, this area of thunderstorms, we're going to need to watch in that circle region from Ohio back down into portions of the Arklatex region. So definitely something to keep an eye on there. But as we head beyond Halloween into November 1st, notice that this cool down is likely going to not be very noticeable for the eastern United States. Some highs might not get out of the 40s for areas of New York City. However, again, if you're south of this line, you're likely going to be 50 degrees or higher here. All right, so, and you can obviously see that behind that, we're going to recover the atmosphere while we have another one coming in. So, like I said, the jet stream's only going to be wobbling and wobbling around as we head beyond this time frame. So, definitely keep an eye out for the severe weather threats there. Anywhere south of this line is likely going to be above 50 degrees for highs. Anywhere north of that line will be below 50 for highs this weekend. And then as we head in towards early next week, all right, remember we talked about that big negatively tilted trough, that big time one. All right, cold air is really going to be spilling in with this one, and you can really see the differentiation between the air masses. You can see anywhere south of this line will likely have 60-degree temperatures or higher. However, if you're north of that line, you're likely not in the warm front or well, no, you're not in the warm sector, or you're behind the cold front. So please make sure you're continuing to monitor your weather apps here. Definitely going to be cooler for folks in this area as we head in towards voting day. And then as we go eastward, look at this. We're talking about 80s in areas like Louisiana all the way into Florida, and you can obviously see where the boundary is. It doesn't take a meteorologist to figure out where this frontal boundary is as we head in towards this time frame. Again, tension of air masses, cold air racing in, warm air surging northward, tension of air masses, severe weather would be a possibility anywhere in that circle region because of how fast that front is moving as we head in towards that time frame. And then as we head in towards November 7th, things really change here. The warmest air is really off to our south at this point. All right, so if you're north of this line, you're going to be chilly for high temperatures. All right, we got cold air really starting to spill in now. This is almost like an Arctic blast as we head in towards this time frame. All right, a mini one as we head in towards this time frame. But look what happens as we head towards the end of the model run. All right, this could be a real Arctic blast as we head in towards this time frame, with recovery only getting up into Nebraska. All right, so this is something to keep an eye on, especially for the mid to late November forecast, which is way far out, so we're not going to be talking about that now. However, these temperatures can give a hint that the hot temperatures are going to begin to start sagging further south, and they're eventually going to start staying further south. All right, so these areas, like our northern communities here, are starting likely going to get the 30s and 20s in there for high temperatures. So enjoy your last few storm systems of warm air in this general vicinity, because the warm air is only going to go so far north as we head in towards mid to late November. Alright guys, that was all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.